Hey cuties, what's up? We are back with some more reactions after dark, and we are of course going to be watching 4 Last Photos with ominous backstories, obviously by the lazy Masquerade. I saw this and I was like, you know what, I'm going to do this today. Now this was only uploaded like 6 hours ago, so that's how early I am to reacting to this. I also wanted to do the newest video from Question, because I was like, oh, that's interesting. It's just the disturbing internet horrors of France. I mean, basically, that's the only thing I do from Question, right, is just disturbing internet horrors of insert location, 1, 2, 3, etc. But France, like, what does France have? Question mark. So that might be tomorrow. It should have been today, but I saw lazy and I was like, you know what, we're doing lazies instead. So, yeah. No hater segment today, no radical break, of course. This video is only 37 minutes, so more like 30 minutes. Let's see, I'm just gonna get into it. It's like a necklace of terror. That's what the chapter says this is called. Yeah, necklace of terror. Is this the quote-unquote necklace of terror? What is this? If I see something strapped to someone's neck like this, I just automatically assume explosive, question mark, but that's not what this is, right? This isn't an explosive, right?
53-year-old Elvia Cortez wasn't a public figure, nor was she part of some wealthy family. By all accounts, she and her husband, Salomon, lived modestly in rural Colombia, supporting themselves through farm work. They raised animals, worked the land, and used that life to support and educate their children. All that's to say, there was little wealth to be found there, which makes what happened to them feel all the more senseless. At around 4 AM on May 15th, 2000, 4 masked men arrived at the couple's home in the countryside near Simiaka. They cut the power, poisoned the family dog so that it wouldn't give them away, and waited.
Poison the dog? This is like concentrated levels of like screwing someone over. Like, really? I'm assuming they have to kidnap her, right, to put this on her neck, so break into someone's house, gonna kidnap them, strap an explosive, I assume, to your neck, but then on top of that, they're gonna poison your dog, too? Like, Jesus Christ.
By the front door, dressed entirely in black. According to family members, Elvia left the house at around 5 AM every morning to milk the cows, and these men knew her routine. When Elvia opened the door, they burst in, marched her straight into the bedroom with her husband, gagged and bound them both, and demanded to know where they hid their savings. Elvia and Solomon insisted that they hadn't.
Yeah, I feel like that they're just saying that as a cover-up, because, like, if you've been casing these people for so long, like, you would know they don't have any money, question mark? So I think this is just, like, a specific, like, screw you to these people, but, like, why? What do they do to you? And, like, again, I just think that's a cover-up.
And demanded to know where they hid their savings. Elvia and Solomon insisted that they had none. Frustrated, the attackers forced Elvia into a chair and fastened a heavy, homemade device around her neck.
I mean, this is after the fact, so what did it do if it not explode? Because that back casing, or whatever this casing, this PVC piping, is it not? Or something like that. You would assume the entire thing would have blown up. But if this is after it blew up, it only blew up over there? Question marks? Again, I don't know what we're looking at, if this is even tied to it, or if this is B-roll. There's no way this is B-roll, right? So, what happened back there? Or did they successfully defuse the bomb, and that's why it's cut open there? You know, like Bomb Squad sliced open the back of this piping and cut the wires and diffused it.
The metal collar weighed roughly 12 pounds and pressed tightly against her throat like a rigid medical brace. Before leaving, the intruders placed a cassette tape nearby. When the couple pressed play, a nasal voice came through the speaker. "Please pay attention, Mrs. Cortez. The necklace you're wearing is a bomb."
Of course. It's French, I'm guessing.
The voice wasn't lying. The collar consisted of 4 PVC tubes, packed with roughly 2 kilograms of dynamite. It had been built so that it couldn't be slipped off. According to the eloquent voice on the tape, Elvia and her husband had until 3 PM to gather 15 million pesos, roughly $7,500 at the time. If they succeeded,
Excuse me, what?
had until 3 PM to gather 15 million pesos, roughly $7,500 at the time.
7,500. That's it. You strapped an explosive to someone's neck for $7,500. I know this is 26 years ago or whatever, but $7,000 again, even back then, is like chump change in comparison to what you're doing? Question mark.
If they succeeded, the men would return and set Elvia free. If they failed, the bomb would be detonated. The tape also warned the couple not to contact the authorities, threatening that if they did, their children would be killed.
My brethren in Christ, she has a bomb strapped to her. I kept trying not to say the word bomb because I feel like that's YouTube's gonna not like that word. She has an explosive strapped to her neck. How is she not gonna stand out to the cops? Like, hello?
The voice thanked them for their attention on the matter, and signed off with the ominous name, Talak Nico. With the attackers gone, Elvia and her husband were left facing an impossible decision. Quietly find a way to gather the money, and hope that the extortionists kept their word, or seek help and risk triggering the device. Elvia opted to call her sister, Maria, who in turn contacted the authorities. The police said that in order to help Elvia, she needed to get somewhere remote, but they were hesitant to transport her somewhere themselves, fearing that the bomb might detonate inside their patrol car. They clearly didn't mind risking the life of a taxi driver though, as they ordered one from the nearby city of Chiquinquirá and had it drive Elvia to a quiet stretch of road. Authorities soon turned up and cordoned off the area. As the morning progressed, family members, curious locals, and television crews gathered nearby to watch the operation unfold. At around 8:30 AM, bomb technicians began examining the collar and quickly discovered that the device was far more sophisticated than it appeared. It contained a syringe filled with acid, 6 batteries, a light-sensitive photocell, an electronic control unit, mechanical triggers, and explosive chambers believed to contain RDX.
And, who are these people to create such a quote-unquote sophisticated object like this? Question mark.
Any mistake could set one of the multiple triggers off. To make matters worse, the responders were completely unprepared. This was the first case of collar bombing in Colombia, and predated the infamous pizza bomber incident in the United States.
This, I don't know if this is what I always remember, because I vaguely remember something from the early 2000s that was a big deal. It was on the news. I feel like they were looking at it live. It was live on the news of guy in street with explosive strapped to neck saying, begging everyone to get away from him because he's going to blow up. But I feel like that's just something that didn't actually happen. I don't know. Question mark. But I not vaguely, it's deep seated in my memory, this thing that happened on the news, and I don't know if it's this. Because I've looked at it before, and I think I probably just, what I had looked up was this, but I don't know. Because I swear, it was on the news. They were showing what I feel was this guy, right? I don't know. This just feels like a phantom memory that didn't happen. Even though it's not it's a made-up memory. It's something that I saw on television for quite a while. Question mark. It's just I haven't heard anyone ever talk about it. This right here might be the very first time. I was going to bring this up anyways, even if you didn't, once he was done with the story. This may be the very first time anyone has ever mentioned this situation. Pizza... what did he call it?
This was the first case of collar bombing in Colombia, and predated the infamous pizza bomber incident in the United
Pizza bomber. And they were calling this collar bombing, question mark, as well, by the way. I didn't hear I didn't understand what he said before, but he said collar bombing, it's a genre of bombings. Yeah, I feel like this is the first time anyone has ever mentioned the pizza bombing, question mark, ever, since 20 years ago. After it happened, it was never heard of again. No one's ever mentioned it, no one's ever talked about it in passing. I don't know. That's why it feels like it didn't happen. It's never been brought up ever again, at least in my life, outside of seeing it on the news when it was happening.
United States. Nobody was sure how to handle the situation. The technician leading the operation was 28-year-old Jairo Lopez. Colombian reports later noted that he had just become a father, and yet he heroically stepped up to the plate.
Why are you saying that unless he ends up dying? Even though, again, that collar seemed to be cut into and dealt with, so...
Before beginning, Jairo administered sedatives to Elvia to keep her calm and still, knowing that even the slightest sudden movement could detonate the bomb. As he worked, other officers poured water onto the device and around Elvia's neck to keep the metal components from heating up.
Do you not have any, like, where is your, like, explosive gear? It's just a dude with, like, a vest, right? Did we not have full bomb gear back then? Like a little robot, maybe, and then... I feel like we had robots, like bomb robots back then. Yeah, I know it was like 26 years ago, but still. But like, where's your full, like... What do you call it? I don't even know what you would call it, but your full, like, bomb gear. Your, like, juggernaut gear.
Despite the terrifying circumstances, Elvia remained calm. At one point, she even suggested to Maria that the bomb might be fake. She also repeatedly asked one simple question. Why would anyone do this to me? For hours, Hiro worked carefully, cutting wires and dismantling parts of the device piece by piece. At times, he had to improvise, borrowing equipment from nearby workers, including a bandsaw, and at one point, heated the blade of a penknife over a candle to cut through parts of the plastic tubing. By around 10 AM, there were reports that sections of the bomb had already been removed. Despite the horror of the situation, it began to feel as if Elvia might survive.
Might.
Don't worry, ma'am, Hiro reportedly told her. We'll get through this, then we'll have lunch together. By midday, Elvia was exhausted. By that point, she had spent hours sitting perfectly still. Hiro said that he had dismantled about 70% of the device and had neutralized what appeared to be one of its chemical triggers. In his words, it was only a matter of time until she was free.
What about the bomb, though? We're really hyping this up to be like, oh, yeah, he got rid of 70%, but he didn't get rid of the 30% that actually matters, and they both die.
Delighted, the man overseeing the operation, Commander Fabio Roa, carefully approached Elvia and kissed her on the cheek. He then walked towards the crowd of onlookers and told them that he expected everything to be finished within an hour. Unfortunately, he was right. Just 10 seconds later, the bomb exploded.
Shouldn't have done that.
The commander turned back toward the scene. A ball of grey smoke hung in the air, and several figures were strewn across the ground. Elvia's head and shoulders were gone, obliterated by the blast. Hiro Lopez lay nearby, gravely injured. His left arm had been completely blown off. He was airlifted to a hospital in Bogota, but died at 2 PM that afternoon. Several others were injured in the explosion, including another technician who lost 3 fingers. The rescue attempt had ended in catastrophe. Needless to say, the incident shocked Colombia. Kidnappings for ransom were tragically common at the time, but the brutality and strangeness of the Necklace of Terror case, as it was dubbed, horrified.
That sucks so much, right? Like, spend all that time trying to get rid of it. 70%, again, he got rid of 70%, but not the 30% that actually mattered, which was the explosive part. Again, are we not going to talk about the fact that that man just killed everybody? It was partly his fault, right? That was unprofessional-ish. Like, it's like, oh yeah, you're trying to give hope, but you just killed the 2 of them. So I'm assuming what happened is, he said that the guy who's watching gave her a kiss on the cheek and then walked away, and I'm assuming that was enough motion to cause issues and for it to go off. Question mark. Right, so like I feel like he literally just killed them. If he would have just like been quiet and just let him continue working, everything would have been fine. Question mark. Or you would hope, at least anyways, hindsight, whatever. Now, I assume like they didn't actually go off just because of the fact that it looked like we had a picture of the thing in a pristine condition, but maybe that was just like a replica or a 3D render. I'm not sure.
The country. In the days that followed, investigators searched for those responsible. Early speculation linked the attack to the revolutionary guerrilla group FARC, but evidence for that theory never materialized, and it's since been deemed unlikely that they were involved. Detectives later identified a suspect named Jose Miguel Suarez, a man who had reportedly worked around the Cortez family's property and knew their routines. According to investigators, Suarez had experience handling explosives during his time working in mining operations. Prosecutors later connected him to a small extortion ring, Los Conejos. Suarez was eventually arrested, convicted, and sentenced to 32 years in prison, but the identities of the 3 other men who attached the bomb have never been established. The meaning of the name Palak Nico, spoken on the cassette tape, has never been definitively explained either. It may have been a pseudonym, a group name, or simply something invented to intimidate the victims into paying the ransom. Investigators say that Suarez and his crew overestimated the Cortez family's wealth. Their entire plan was built on nothing more than rumor and speculation, and Elvia and Hiro died for nothing. That being said, some people, including Elvia's own family, have a different theory. In their minds, whoever had built the device had gone through a lot of trouble, far too much for the relatively small ransom they were demanding. Prior to the
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what I was saying. Like, what do you mean you built this highly sophisticated bomb, all for the sake of chump change, pocket change, literally?
bomb detonating, Elvia had apparently whispered to Maria that she recognized the voice of one of the intruders and believed it to be her neighbor's son.
Neighbor's son? Why? Why would you do this? Well, I'm assuming nothing ever came to that then. There's something else I wanted to say that I just forgot after they brought up the son. I don't remember.
The two households were reportedly embroiled in a bitter feud, potentially over land boundaries and farming rights. In fact, just a month before her death, Elvia had been attacked at a market by someone wielding a knife. Her family now believes that Elvia's neighbors weren't only behind that attack, but the explosive collar attack as well, and that the ransom the intruders demanded was to mislead investigators and disguise their true motive: revenge. That theory remains unconfirmed. A film inspired by this incident, titled PVC-1, was released in 2007.
Like 7 years later?
This message is sponsored by Raycon.
I was like, what is with the like long pause that we're going to an ad just out of nowhere at the end of this? We had the thing, yeah, buyraycon.com/masquerade BC. I don't know what the BC is for, but yeah. buyraycon.com/masquerade BC. Because of course we're going to be skipping this. Kirizumi Onsen.
Kirizumi Onsen is a scenic hot spring.
I was going to say onsen is a hot springs where you go to take a bath, question mark usually. If you don't know what an onsen is, it's just hot springs, right? Hot spring bath. Next over here, I don't know how many places on the planet have places where you just go bathe with other people in public. You know, just out in public, getting naked, taking baths with strangers, question mark. I don't know who does that other than Japan, question mark, right? I assume there has to be other places that do that, but I feel like Japan is the only place I know of for a fact that makes it seem like that's just a normal event. Like, I feel like some people don't even have like baths at home. They just go to the bathhouse every day, possibly.
Hot spring located deep in the mountains of western Gunma Prefecture, Japan. In the early 20th century, it was a popular summer retreat, known for its cool climate, forested scenery, and mineral springs. By the 1970s, the area had grown quieter, but visitors still came to enjoy the hiking trails and the secluded atmosphere of the mountain resort. One such visitor was 24-year-old Keiko Inoue, an office worker from the nearby city of Isesaki.
4 last photos with ominous backstories. Do I know this story? There's supposed to be like a woman who went and like was doing something out on the forest with her friend, and a man showed up and killed the both of them.
August of 1972, she had planned an overnight stay there with her mother and younger brother.
No, I don't think so.
However, both of her relatives were forced to cancel. Rather than waste the booking, Keiko decided to go alone. On August 12th, she travelled to Kintokan, a traditional inn, or ryokan, and checked in without incident. Staff later remembered Keiko as being cheerful and talkative. She spent the day relaxing in the on-site hot springs, and reportedly didn't leave the building. After breakfast the following morning, Keiko decided to hike down the mountain into town. She'd originally planned to catch the shuttle bus, but decided that the weather was too nice to miss out on. The woman running the inn told her that the journey would take around 4 hours at least, and that the temperature that day was set to reach 32 degrees Celsius. But Keiko was a determined young woman, and so she set off on foot, wearing a dark blue sleeveless blouse, a white miniskirt, and white athletic trainers. Over the next several hours, multiple people would cross her path. Most significantly, at around 2:10 p.m, a family driving down the mountain noticed her walking alone. Concerned that she still had a long journey ahead of her, they offered her a ride, but Keiko politely turned them down. That would be the last confirmed sighting of her, alive.
This was like way in the past, right? So, I mean, you're not going to be able to find someone that easy back then, because there's like no cell phones and none of that stuff, so...
When Keiko failed to return home to Isesaki, her parents reported her missing and travelled to the hot spring resort where she had last been seen. At least 10 of their neighbours joined them. On the evening of August 16th, while searching for Keiko just south of the Kirimizu Dam, her own father stumbled upon a rickety, 2-room cabin. Something compelled him to peer in through the rear window. There, lying on the wooden floor, was the body of a young woman. It was Keiko. The scene was brutal. Keiko was swarmed by flies and partially decomposed. According to the forensic autopsy, she'd been stabbed 24 times. 3 of those wounds were inflicted more than 30 minutes after death. Defensive injuries on her hands suggested that she had fought desperately for her life, and several on her back indicated she had tried to run.
Was that talking about like how the father found her? Question mark. Is this the symbol for father there? Question mark.
Her hands suggested that she had fought desperately for her life, and several on her back indicated she had tried to run. Investigators determined that the attack had likely taken place between 2:30 and 3 p.m. on August 13th, less than 1 hour after her last sighting. Unfortunately for detectives, Keiko's killer had been careful. Arterial blood spray showed that he had killed her in the entrance area here, before dragging her into this second room, likely to make her body less visible to anyone peering through the doorway. Medical experts later suggested that 2 different blades may have been used in the slaying. A survival knife.
I want to look at this room. Question mark. It said he got rid of her here and then dragged her over here to the corner so that he wouldn't be able to see from the door. Question mark. But then she's just placed right next to a window instead. What would have been like the best place in his shoes? Like, I feel like there is nowhere. Like, unless here. I mean, it's right next to the door, but if you look in, depending on like where the door opens, if it opens that way, well then I think over there would have been better, but that's just like thinking about that. I mean, it's something that shouldn't have happened.
Likely to make her body less visible to anyone peering through the doorway.
I just felt like that was like not a... They're trying to hype him up as being kind of smart, but I feel like that's smart. She just moved her from one spawning location to another, which is why she was found.
Experts later suggested that 2 different blades may have been used in the slaying, a survival knife and a meat cleaver. Despite extensive searches of the surrounding forest and waterways, neither weapon was ever located. The only physical evidence that the killer left behind was a bloody glove print on the wall. In total, the police found 43 of Keiko's belongings hidden inside the cabin. That included her bag, clothing, a travel guide, and, crucially, her camera, which had been carefully placed in her upturned hat. When investigators developed the film, they discovered 5 photographs taken during Keiko's final day. The first 2, taken that morning at around 10 a.m., showed her smiling in front of Kintokan's water wheel. They were taken by a part-time staff member just before Keiko checked out, and haven't been released.
I was like, what is this? I think that's a sensor on her body. Like she has maybe her camera set up to take a picture of the water wheel with her in front of it.
To the public. The next 2 images were taken beside a waterfall further down the Hoihoisaka Trail, around an area called Shinobu Pond. At the time, the police didn't know who had taken these photographs, and a local newspaper decided to run just one of them, requesting information. Days later, a man contacted the paper. He identified himself as Yoshida, a 22-year-old repairman from Tokyo, and explained that he and a friend had been fishing at Shinobu Pond around 1:15 p.m. According to the man, Keiko then approached them and asked to have a picture taken beside the waterfall. Yoshida initially refused, because he was bad with cameras, but Keiko encouraged him to simply press the shutter button. He said that he did so twice. And since the paper only published one of the images, the fact that this man knew that 2 had been taken suggested he really was the photographer. Yoshida promised the reporters that he would go to the police and provide a full statement immediately.
But
when investigators attempted to locate him using the name and address which he had provided, they discovered something chilling. None of the information was real. The name, address, and workplace which he had given were completely fictitious. To this day, the identity of the man who claimed to have taken Keiko's photographs remains a mystery.
So we're saying that he did it, clearly, because why are you being so suspicious, if not?
Which brings us to the 5th and final image, taken by the Condor waterfall. Like the first 2 images taken at Kintokan, this photo hasn't been released to the public, though this mock-up, featuring an actress, is said to be accurate. It shows Keiko standing alone in front of dense vegetation. Those who have seen the original image describe Keiko's expression as unusually serious, her posture stiff, almost...
That's what I was going to say, like if this is recreation, they're making it seem like she's not having a good time.
tense. It's since been dubbed the spirit photo, since an ominous mist was apparently visible in the bottom of the frame. Investigators believe it was likely taken shortly before her attack. To this day, nobody knows who took it. According to one of Keiko's neighbors and family friends, quote, "When the police returned all of Keiko-chan's belongings, they showed them to me too. Among them was a photograph, said to be the last showing the poor girl, and it was eerie. She was standing there blankly in a bamboo thicket. From halfway down her legs, there was something like white smoke or cloud, and the lower part of her was cut off, and her expression had no life in it. She looked like an empty shell." According to others who have seen the photograph, the waterfall was also visible in the background, so this alternative mock-up has also been shared online. In an attempt to solve the case, police formed a special investigative task force and looked into more than 2,000 people who were in the area at the time, including hikers, anglers, ryokan employees, dam workers, and locals with a criminal record. All of them were cleared of suspicion, as were 380.
Like, why does this photo look so bad compared to the other photo? Is it just because they published it in the newspaper, and that's why it looks like this, rather than actually showing the real photo itself. Like, we had the real photo for the first set of her at the waterfall, unless those were just mock-ups. And the other photo we saw was a mock-up, but why does this look like this, other than the fact that they only ever showed the public the black and white version in the newspaper? But why would you do that? Why wouldn't you just show us the real version so we can actually see what the guy looks like? Or are we just saying her camera just was that bad of quality?
80 of Keiko's friends, acquaintances, colleagues, and family members. In a desperate bid to solve the case, psychics were even brought in to reveal new leads. And wouldn't
Oh, was that a Polaroid? Was she using a Polaroid camera?
you know it, they ended up trying to steal the spotlight, acted possessed, and wasted everyone's time. In 1987, 15 years after the crime, the statute of limitations for murder expired. Today, Keiko's death remains officially unsolved. If a culprit is ever identified, they won't face any repercussions.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy that statute of limitations even exists. Like, why does that exist? Mr. Kipper.
Susie Lamblou was a British woman born in 1961. She grew up in a close-knit family alongside 3 siblings who described her as energetic, sociable, and adventurous. She enjoyed traveling, sports, and the kind of busy social life typical of someone in their 20s. By 1986, the 25-year-old was working as an estate agent for the firm Sturgis & Sons, based in Fulham, West London. On the morning of July 28 that year, Susie arrived at her office as per usual. Her schedule for the day included several property
Mr. Kipper at 12:45.
viewings, but one appointment in particular stood out. At 12:45 p.m, she was due to show a house at 37 Shrods Road to a prospective buyer who had introduced himself over the phone as Mr. Kipper. In the UK, a kipper is a cured herring. There's even a common idiom, to be done up like a kipper, which means to be severely cheated, tricked, or taken advantage of.
Okay, well then why would she do this if he would name himself that, which is already telling you what he could be up to. Why? Right? But I mean, she's doing her job, right? Also, I feel like saying being done up like a kipper also is like, oof, because is she about to be filleted or something?
Susie and her colleagues likely shared a laugh about the humorous surname and thought little more of it.
Sure.
At around midday, Susie left the office and drove to the property in her white Ford Fiesta. A witness later reported seeing her arrive at the address shortly before the scheduled viewing. A second, who lived just next door, noticed her standing outside the house at around 1 p.m. Strangely, she was apparently arguing with a man. Based on their description, this identikit of the individual was created. The man was tall, had dark, swept-back hair, was around 25 to 30 years of age, and was dressed smartly in a charcoal suit. A third witness also reported seeing that same man talking with Susie, and noted that he was holding a bottle of champagne, decorated with ribbons. Later, a close friend of Susie's, Barbara Whitfield, reported seeing her driving north along Fulham Palace Road at around 2:45 p.m.
Okay, so she's still alive. Exactly 2 hours later?
Barbara waved, but Susie was talking with a man in the passenger seat and didn't see her. When Susie failed to return to the office later that afternoon, her colleagues initially assumed that the viewing had run long. But as the hours passed, concern began to grow. At 4:30 p.m, they went to the property at 37 Shrods Road and found it empty. By 5:30 p.m, they reported Susie missing to the police. Later that evening,
Though, will they actually get to work quickly? Because usually you're like, okay, we gotta wait 24 hours or like 3 days or something. I don't know what the actual time is, right? Can you just be like, hey, she went to go do this for her job and she hasn't come back yet? It's been like 5 hours. Go find her. And they'll just show up?
Susie's white Ford Fiesta was discovered abandoned on Stevenage Road. The driver's door was unlocked, the handbrake was off, and the seat had been pushed back further than Susie would have normally had it while driving. Her purse was
Is that implying that he was driving the car because he's tall, right? So he has to push the chair back?
found inside, but there was no trace of Susie anywhere. Later, another witness came forward, saying that he had seen a dark-coloured car driving south along that same road around the time that Susie vanished. Inside, he saw a woman matching her description, honking the horn, and either laughing or screaming. Both Susie's boyfriend and male flatmate were definitively ruled out as suspects. A few other people came onto the police's radar, but were also quickly dismissed.
Yeah, look at this. 25 was last seen outside this place. White Ford. Police wish to trace this man who was seen with her. See, this is 5'7" to 5'9". I thought they said he was tall. Was this tall for the 80s? I don't think so. Question mark? I was expecting him to be like well over 6 feet, not just like 7 to 9. Like 5'7" to 5'9". How tall is
One man with
Susan if this guy had to push the seat back to drive?
would eventually emerge as the prime suspect, though. A convicted sex offender called John Cannon. Several pieces of circumstantial evidence drew attention to him.
And sure, I mean, his hair's swept back. I'm assuming his eyes are supposed to be blue, but they just look gray. I mean, gray I think is considered a eye color, but it's like a bluish gray. Charcoal even? Charcoal with a little blue?
In the months leading up to Susie's disappearance, Cannon was being granted day release. When he returned to prison in the evenings, he told the other inmates of a girl he had met at a wine bar, and said that her name was Susu. Susie's co-workers noted that prior to her vanishing, a mysterious admirer had sent a bunch of red roses to the office.
I mean, this looks like the guy.
Cannon was known to deliver roses to women who he took a shining to. Cannon was released from prison just 3 days before Susie vanished, and had been in the Fulham area at the time. Being an attractive young woman, Susie's manager at the office positioned her near the window to attract customers. A witness reported seeing a man resembling Cannon peering through the window of her estate agency on the day Susie disappeared. To top it off, former prison acquaintances also said that while behind bars, Cannon was known by a simple nickname: Kipper. However, there was no smoking gun, and the police were unable to make an arrest.
Other than the fact that he calls himself Kipper, and a person called Mr. Kipper was the alleged last person that she was seen with?
Not until the following year, at least.
Okay, following year,
In
what do we got?
1978, Cannon joined a dating agency using the alias John Peterson.
Excuse me?
During the sign-up process, he filmed this profile video.
Yes, I have a dislike of inflated egos. People who are, they look at me, I'm great type. I don't like that.
Right.
I can't handle that sort of inner
They're
weakness.
kind of pretentious.
Yeah, I don't like that at all. I just like just normal, average people.
And what about TV comedy programs? Is there anything that you like in that vein?
I'm a little bit dry as regards humour. Yeah, that's it. Maybe dry humour.
Though Cannon described his sense of humour as dry, I think it could more accurately be considered twisted. You see, a few weeks after filming this, he met and murdered a 29-year-old woman named Shirley Banks in Bristol. He later dumped her body at a site in the Quantocks, known as Dead Woman's Ditch, an ominous name which dates back hundreds of years, and which he no doubt selected on purpose.
Yeah, but is it named that because people are constantly getting rid of women there? Question mark. Is that why it's called that?
He was later arrested by police in connection with Shirley's murder, and inside his BMW, they found an imitation handgun and handcuffs.
Imitation? Does that mean it's fake?
Shirley's car was found in his garage, with the fake license plate, SLP 386S. Some have questioned whether this was yet another dark joke of his. SLP, Susie Lamplugh, 86, the year she vanished. When asked by police about the license plate, Cannon stated that he had purchased the car from a businessman who was no doubt responsible for the slayings of Susie, Shirley, and another woman, and that said businessman was now in a great deal of trouble. The other woman Cannon mentioned is believed to be Sandra Gord, a 27-year-old office worker who was murdered in Bournemouth in 1986. Though he couldn't be officially connected to that crime, Cannon would later be convicted of Shirley's murder, and for his sins was given a life sentence.
Okay, so if we're assuming this guy did do it, he at least got life, not for her crime, like the crime of killing her, but at least he got life for something, right? Though you would hope it would be the death penalty instead.
He later stated that there were one or two things he was never caught for. Though DNA belonging to Susie Lamplugh was later recovered from within Cannon's vehicle, the evidence against him was deemed insufficient, and he was never formally charged in connection with her vanishing either.
What do you mean they actually found Susie's DNA in his car? No, in the car of someone who is a murderer, and they're like, oh, inconsequential. Like, okay, come on, guys.
However, the senior investigating officer working the case would later state that he was almost certainly responsible for whatever happened to her. Cannon died behind bars on November 6th, 2024.
Sure.
His own family had begged him to reveal where Susie
2024. 2 years ago.
was buried, but being a control freak, he never did. Nearly 40 years later, Susie Lamplugh still hasn't been found, but her case continues to resonate, not only because of the mystery surrounding it, but also because of the legacy it left behind. Her parents later founded the Susie Lamplugh Trust, a charity dedicated to personal safety and the prevention of violence. But before she became the focus of one of Britain's most enduring missing person cases, Susie was simply a daughter and a sister, something that's easy to forget when looking at headlines or police files. And that's why this photograph, taken shortly before Susie vanished, matters so much. It captures a moment from a life that ended far too soon, the kind of moment that usually passes unnoticed. It shows Susie with her 3 siblings, all of them laughing and smiling, unaware that it would be the last ever image taken of them all together.
The Smiling Friends? Question mark. Is Smiling Friends a show? I am interested in watching that show, but I have not seen that show. I'm guessing this has nothing to do with the show. It's just named that way on purpose to bring that thought across, but it that's probably where that ends. And has nothing to do with that.
In the summer of 2017, Richard Spotty Spottiswood and his then girlfriend, Lucy Byrne, took a family trip to Cresswell Towers Caravan Park in Northumberland, England. In the spur of the moment, Richard called his friend and employee, 24-year-old Darren Bonner, and invited him to join them. Darren, who was known to friends as Zippy, worked at a garage owned by Richard, who paid him the princely sum of £25 a day and allowed him to live in a mobile home outside the shop. Behind the scenes, however, Richard was also involved in a large-scale cannabis farming operation and allegedly paid Darren extra money to tend to his farms.
True.
But that weekend wasn't about talking business. It was about kicking back. And so, between July 7th and July 9th, the trio spent time drinking, socialising, and enjoying the scenic coastline. At 1:15 AM on July 10th, after all of Richard's family had gone home, the three of them took this selfie in their rented caravan, posing together as friends do.
This is the Smiling Friends?
Seemingly without a care in the world. But within hours, that friendship would collapse into violence.
Hold on. This is the guy who's getting paid. These two are together, right? So why is this guy's girlfriend so cozied up with, you know, this kid? We're assuming this guy's young compared to these other two. So is that what's going to happen here? Question mark? Because again, like, aren't these two dating over here? So what's going on here? Why is she over here with her boyfriend?
Later that morning, at just after 8 AM, an early morning walker passing along the coast heard what he described as loud snoring noises coming from near a stone wall. Concerned, he contacted the...
Okay, well, are we going to assume that somebody's head was cracked and, like, the snoring was the effects? Like, isn't that what happens, right? If you get, like, a severe brain... Like, if you take severe brain damage, you'll, like, pass out and snore. I mean, if you get knocked out, snoring might be something that just happens, but... Wasn't that said before in one of these videos? Like, your head gets severely damaged, you're going to be snoring, but that snoring is actually an indication that you're probably going to die? Question mark. So they're going to find somebody who's about to die?
The police, and after a brief search, officers discovered Darren Bonner in an open grave, curled up in the fetal position. All of his clothes had been removed, and he was shivering uncontrollably and barely conscious. A prominent red mark was evident around his neck, and there were bruises and marks all over his torso. According to doctors, he had suffered catastrophic injuries across his torso and severe oxygen deprivation to the brain. They desperately tried to save him, but the damage caused by the apparent beating, strangulation, and prolonged exposure to the cold had left Darren with irreversible brain damage. Sadly,
Okay, so yeah, the snoring.
Darren died 16 days after being admitted. Nurses referred to him as Lionheart because of how long he held on. During their investigation, police quickly established that Darren had last been seen with Richard and Lucy during their holiday weekend. They went to pick the couple up in South Tyneside 3 days after discovering Darren, but in an effort to avoid arrest, Richard led them on a high-speed car chase. Unable to outrun the fuzz, Richard abandoned his vehicle and fled the scene on foot. A police dog later tracked his scent, and officers found him hiding in a bush.
Wait, about the girlfriend?
To begin with, Richard attempted to deflect suspicion. He claimed that he and Darren were thick as thieves, that the atmosphere during that trip was excellent, and that they had been having a laugh the entire weekend.
Except for this? Hello? Cheek to cheek? Girlfriend is cheek to cheek? Hello?
As evidenced by their final selfie together. Darren had simply wandered off in the middle of the night, and when Richard awoke, he was gone. In fact, Richard was quite frankly offended that he was even being considered as a suspect, and he made sure to continuously remind detectives of that. But when that approach failed, Richard then came up with a new story. According to him, Darren sold stolen firearms. He had apparently brought a sawn-off shotgun to the caravan park, and had dug a deep hole in which to hide it. Richard had graciously offered to help him, and walked off with Darren in the middle of the night. However, while at the hole, Darren became physically violent. Richard defended himself, and accidentally knocked Darren unconscious and into the hole. When asked why he removed Darren's clothes, Richard simply said that he panicked. When asked with a mysterious...
What do you mean you panic and just completely strip someone of their clothes? What do you mean? What the heck? What do you mean you're just like, oh yeah, I freaked out, so I just made him naked and ran away?
shotgun was. He said that he took it back to his workplace, but that somebody had since stolen it. Investigators quickly dismissed Richard's account, telling him that a plethora of evidence pointed towards him being Darren's killer. That included an extensive amount of CCTV footage, which showed him driving to the gravesite, signs of a major struggle within their caravan, and forensics collected at the scene. As a cherry on top, Darren's clothes and disassembled mobile phone were found inside Richard's van, along with a receipt for a garden fork, which he may have used to dig the hole. What exactly transpired between the two men remains murky. According to prosecutors, though, Richard accused his young employee of spying for a rival drug gang that night and decided to make an example out of him. He then placed Darren in a headlock and strangled him so tightly that the blood vessels in his face burst. Investigators also found evidence that he had struck Darren at least 12 times across the back with a rod-shaped weapon and beat him across his entire body. Though Richard's girlfriend, Lucy Byrne, initially played dumb, she later served as a witness for the prosecution, saying that she had been...
Okay, so I wasn't confused, because I swear, like, these two are together, so I was like, what's going on here? So look, they're a couple, and this is like a third wheel.
been awoken by a horrible row between Richard and Darren in the early hours of July 10th, and that she had, quote, never seen her boyfriend look so evil. According to her version of events, she didn't see Richard kill Darren. However, when she and Richard left the holiday resort in the morning, Richard apparently refused to let her look in the rear compartment of the van. At one point, he stopped the vehicle near the location where Darren was later found, dragged a large object from the van, and disappeared for around 10 minutes before returning drenched in sweat. Many have since questioned whether Lucy really didn't know what her boyfriend was up to. Indeed, the police believe that she may have even helped him carry out the plan. Lucy was originally charged with murder alongside Richard. However, due to insufficient evidence that she participated in the killing, she was later cleared of that charge, and instead pleaded guilty to assisting an offender, receiving a sentence of...
I was going to say, like, what is she going to do there? Okay, what is he going to say?
30 months in prison.
What? 30 months? Or
Cleared of that charge, and instead pleaded guilty to assisting an offender, receiving a sentence of 30 months in prison.
30 months is still a long time. Why can't people just use years? Just say years. Like, almost 3 years is how much she got.
As for Richard Spottiswoode, he was convicted of Darren's murder and sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 22 years.
Okay, life? Well, 22 to life, I guess.
That minimum term has since been reduced to 20.
Oof.
Though premeditation couldn't be established in this case, I can't help but wonder how spontaneous this murder actually was. 3 days before his death, Darren had called his ex-girlfriend, Donna, and reportedly told her, "I've fallen out with Spotty. He's gonna do me in." Meaning, he's going to kill me.
Yeah?
Darren was apparently preparing to flee town. Later that same day, however...
What are these guys doing? I thought they're just selling weed. Like, what do you mean you have to kill this guy or he's going to kill you? Hello? What are you doing? It's just weed.
Richard picked him up and drove him to the holiday resort. Perhaps Darren thought he had been forgiven for whatever he had done wrong. Perhaps he felt like he had no choice but to go with Richard. According to forensic archaeologists, it would have taken a man of Richard's size around an hour to dig the shallow grave which Darren was found in. A risky move, which contradicts the CCTV evidence. But what if the hole was pre-dug? That would mean that in this
moment, it's premeditated.
As the trio hugged and smiled together, Richard knew that he was about to take Darren's life. If that's
excessively premeditated,
doesn't actually show how quickly an ordinary moment can turn dark. It shows a murderous attempt to create an alibi.
Well, clearly didn't work. Again, I still say there's something going on here. Like, oh, we can't even see, it's too dark. Like, something's going on here. Like, sure, they're just friends, but I don't know. It just feels weird. This is fishy. But, I mean, obviously, this guy did not need to kill this guy, so... I just was assuming that this is why. Like, he got mad that something was going on here, and that's why he killed him? Question mark. But I guess it was just gang stuff at the end of the day.
Murderous attempt to create an alibi.
And that should be it, right? Then look at the mask. Yep. Yep, that is that. So what do we have? We have the necklace, which again, I don't think I've heard of this, but it's unfortunate that they couldn't fix it again. I think it's the guy's fault for interrupting him trying to disarm this bomb and being like, oh yeah, everything's okay, here's a kiss, walks away, bomb proceeds to explode. Like, again, I feel like it was that guy's fault. It's like both of those people would have been still alive if he hadn't interrupted it like that. And it shouldn't have happened to begin with, but I think he played a part in everything going wrong. Just had a thought, what if that guy, I mean, you can see him there, it's the guy in the camo, what if that guy was in on it? Question mark, because what if what he did didn't even set up the bomb? What if he had like a device, right, that activates the bomb? So he did that, walked away far enough to tell people that everything is fine, and then pressed the button in his hand or in his pocket or something, and detonated the bomb, assuming that he knew how it would work and how far he needed to be to get away and not get hurt. You know, just like he just starts walking away, telling everyone everyone's fine, and he presses the button, boom. I don't know. I think we need to be suspicious of this guy because Lazy didn't throw any shade at this guy. It seems like the police and whatnot didn't reprimand this guy or anything. We did not talk about him at all after he was like, "Hey, everything's fine." But I'm suspicious of that guy. Someone needs to look into him. I mean, it's 26 years later, so he might not be alive anymore, but I don't know. He could have been one of the people who was in on it. So they got one dude, then it's the son across the street, and then this dude who's in the police. Got the hot spring one. The Kipper. I mean, at least he died, right? He died in jail, so at least he's gone. But I feel like he was allowed to kill so many people before then. And then this one, I still think that there's something there with the girlfriend, and he just got mad that he was too close to his girlfriend and killed him. Yep, that is going to be it for today. So, cuties, thanks for watching. Remember to buy my stickers, I think about becoming a member, subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Thanks for working on watch time and subscribers, and don't forget we have a throne as well. And shout out to the members, EmmyStarr, RaleyDrew, and alexgkiller 880. Hey cuties, thanks for watching. Tune to the next episode. Like, subscribe, hype, and comment. With the do. See ya.